All right, welcome, everybody. Good morning again, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, depending on where you're joining us from. I hope you are doing fine and I hope your day is going smoothly. You're welcome to another Ask the Expert session. If you're excited, just clap your hands virtually, clap your virtual hands. So today we have our amazing facilitator, Mr. Fatai Sani. He has almost a decade of experience, so you can imagine the information that he's going to be releasing today. Last week on our learnings, we learned Excel, and this week we looked at Power BI. And like we mentioned at the beginning of the week, if you're still lagging behind, please try your best to catch up so we don't leave you, because next week we are going into something different. Today's session promises to be awesome, and if you have any question, you can drop it in the chat box or raise your hand so we can enable your mic. So let us get started. Kindly confirm you can still see my screen. And just give a reaction or thumbs up in chat. All right. So for today's session, we are having an Ask the Expert session with Mr. Fatai Sani, who is a business intelligence manager at Convized. So our ground rules we already know: punctuality, be punctual. Shout out to everyone that made it to the class on time today. Have an open mind. Let us have one class. Participate actively, respect one another. Ask questions. If you want to ask questions, just raise your hand and we would enable your mic or use the chat box. So behind the microphone is Esther Ndukwe. I'm a business and operations analyst. You already met me yesterday, and I have 2 years plus of experience in business intelligence, data analysis, and business operations. For our facilitator, Mr. Fatai Sani, he's a business intelligence consultant. He's currently a business intelligence manager at Convized. His last role was the vice president at Data Advocacy. He's a Microsoft certified trainer. He's a Microsoft certified data analyst and Microsoft certified analytics engineer. He has 9 years of experience in helping businesses leverage data to make better decisions. He's a consultant on analytics and data-driven strategy to several organizations. He has helped over 100 plus companies transform their businesses leveraging data. He's a mentor, a coach, and a thought leader within the data ecosystem. He has spoken at international data conferences. Now, if you are not jealous, just give a clapping ovation to our facilitator while I hand over to him. Mr. Fatai, kindly confirm you can hear me. So are you there? Can you hear me?
Can
Okay.
you and can you see me?
All right. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for being with us today. We're excited to have you in session today. We are ready to draw from your well of knowledge, right? Thank you so much. So today, like we're all aware, we have our Ask the Expert session, and we have some questions that have already been dropped. We'll be reading out some of the questions, and anyone that has a question, they can either drop it in the chat box or they raise their hands up. So kindly confirm we can get started.
Yes, let's go.
All right, thank you so much. So this week we learned Power BI. Our learnings were based on Power BI, and we have a few questions on Power BI and also some career-related questions. So I'll just be reading out the Power BI question first before we head into the career questions. So the first question that we have is, what are the most important concepts a beginner must understand to build effective reports in Power BI?
Okay. What are the most important concepts a beginner must understand before he builds an effective report in Power BI? Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. That's a very interesting question. And I'd like to broaden it first before narrowing it down to Power BI. Before we even start any analytics project, um, first of all is understanding the, I would like to say, business domain first. If you're going to build a dashboard in operations, if you are going to build a dashboard in recruitment, if you're going to build a dashboard for a financial project or for a financial use case, you need to have like a very broad, it may not be in depth, a large understanding of the domain that you're trying to build your project in. All right. And this is very important because there are domain specific or domain centric reporting that as an analyst you have to be aware of. The same way you approach data in let's say in operations will not be the same way you would approach data for financial reporting. There are certain KPIs, there are certain key performance indicators. There are certain things that interest, will I say, stakeholders in different domains, and you have to first be aware of that. But that's on a very broad side. Now, let's narrow it down to building an effective report or an effective analytics project. So the second thing I would like to say is to have the business problem. You have to understand the business problem of what exactly is the problem we are trying to solve here. And for most of us, we may think that, oh, but we're not working in a company yet. I'm just building a project, or I'm just building a dashboard. So you have to make sure that you understand what exactly it is you're trying to do. A lot of people, I mean, and this is something I see from time to time, is we see dashboards and we just take the, oh, sorry, we see data and we just automatically plug this data into Power BI and just start doing sum and count, adding cards, adding bar chart, adding pie charts and the likes, right? One of the core things that someone needs to first ask yourself is, what is the business problem here? What am I trying to answer? What question am I trying to answer with this dashboard? All right. So that is a core concept that needs to be at the back of your mind. Okay. Now, after understanding the business problem, the next thing is to get to understand what again are the stakeholder expectations. Right. You may understand the business problem. So let's say, for example, we want to measure performance in a, or let's say we want to measure we are working in a customer care team, for example, and we want to measure performance of call center agents, all right, in the team. All right. So one of the first things is you need to understand the business problem. What are the key metrics that we're trying to solve for? Are we trying to measure the average time it takes to pick a call? Are we trying to measure the response time? Are we trying to measure resolution time? Are we trying to measure effectiveness of resolution? All right. How many people come back after we answer the first call or after we solve the first problem? All right. So that is understanding the business problem, right? And also understanding what the stakeholder wants, and also how the stakeholders understand the data or how they want the data represented. And this is going to, maybe I'll keep my answer short and hopefully I'll get to answer as we move along. Stakeholders understand data differently. There are some stakeholders that understand or that love to see charts, all right? And there are some particular industry that they love tables. Sorry about that. So, for example, you're building, if you've ever built any report for in the financial sector or finance people love tables a lot. They don't really appreciate charts and graphs as much. So you need to understand how they want the data to be represented. Okay, all of these things I'm talking about, they are not really the technical things about the. I know you may want to know. Oh, okay, should we take the data to Power BI first? Should we first clean it? I'm talking about the soft skills, the general knowledge. All right. Every other thing about technical knowledge, I'm very sure by the time you go to finish this program, you'll be abreast with all the technical knowledge you need. I'm just speaking to the broad business domain and business critical problems that you need to learn. So after knowing all of this, you can now start with your your ETL process, which is to extract the data, you transform it, you load it. You may be familiar with this concept, or you may be introduced to this concept in the course of this mentorship program. All right. But I think at the broad sense of it, those are just the key ones. I like to mention. There's so many other concepts that you need to know. The technical ones, for example, how do you want to layer your dashboards? You need to understand maybe color theory, for example. You don't just slap colors everywhere on the dashboard. How do you position different charts, right, on your dashboard? Read that, how people perceive, how people read to understand a dashboard. For example, people read a dashboard in using the Z approach. Okay, so the at the top, right? You put the most important and the most critical information at the top. All right. So people read from left to right, and then they go this way and this way. All right. So the next important message should also be on the next line. And of course, the least important message, I mean, not essentially the least, can then be maybe at the bottom of that Z. All right. But the most important concept at the top, followed by what is in the middle, and then followed by what is below. There's so many other concepts, but I know that we have a lot of questions. So I'm not going to, this is a topic on its own. So I'll just stop here and get the next question.
All right. Thank you so much, sir. So the key things, understand the business problem before you jump into creating a dashboard. Understand your stakeholder expectations and how they want the results or the reports to be presented. I hope everybody is jotting things down, because this is very explicit. So we have a question in the chat, and the person Oluwatayo says, I notice our experts here have certifications in Microsoft Power BI analyst. Are these necessary criteria in the industry? Is it a necessity for anyone who wants to pivot into the data analyst market?
Okay, this is a question that has been discussed and uh, explained by a lot of experts so many times in the past, and I really love that we're also asking these questions here. Are certifications compulsory for you to learn a data analyst role? The big answer is no, right? So remember the watchword, underline the watchword, are they compulsory? Recruiters only going to give you a job because you have this certification, you have that certification? The answer is no. All right. What are some of the things that help you land a job or that help you break into a data analyst role? First of all, is about knowing your onion. I mean, you've taken the first step, um, enrolling in this program, learning the intricacies of the solution, or not just solution per se, of the craft, right? Data analysis, understanding, I mean, the fundamentals, learning the core, will I say, tools, whether it's Excel, Power BI, SQL, that the base tools, and then building lots of projects. When I say a lot of projects, I mean real world projects, all right? Having a very strong portfolio, and being able to offer value to your prospective employees or employers, rather. Employers love it when you can offer value to them, right? And I mean, that's something that is going to set you apart. I'm going to also introduce something. We've had a lot of entry level, let's say post COVID, there were a lot of entry level data analyst positions that were open. All right. But right now, a lot of people will say, well, I learned data analysis, but I'm not able to get a job. And that's because the job curve has sort of like, let's say, plateaued or flattened since the spike in COVID. So right now, junior level, mid-level data professionals that are trying to break into the industry, we need to do something extra, all right, to edge out competition. And that is about being able to offer value to clients, being able to walk into any team and be able to transform or offer immediate value to them. Okay. And this comes, how do employers know this? They want to see what you have done. All right. You have built several projects, you have a portfolio. All right. And now, if you then have a certification, it's an addition, right? It's not compulsory. Like, you have a certification in itself is not going to get you a job. All right. But is it good to have, or is it a nice to have? Yes. All right. Is it compulsory you have it? Or will employer rate someone that has a certification over someone that know their onions and can deliver value? The question is, or the answer is absolutely no. All right. So if you know what you're doing, you've built your portfolio, you build your project, and you now have a certification in addition to that, yes, you may have an edge over someone that just know They can offer value. They have like equal strength as you, and you can edge out that person because you have a certification. But with the certification alone, just automatically push you to roles. I think the answer is a big no. I hope I'm able to answer that.
Thank you so much, sir. Oluwatayo, I hope you got that. So to our next question, this person says, what are the key differences between calculated columns and measures, and when should each be used?
Okay, thank you. Calculated columns and measure. This is a concept that you'll be familiar with in Power BI. Okay, and it is being used. So understanding the difference is very important to knowing when to use them. Okay, so you know the way you have your. Let me start from. Let me use Excel because maybe a lot of us are familiar with Excel. When you have a calculated column, you're adding from the word, you're adding an extra column to a table that you already have. Okay, so I'm going to use an example. You have a unit price or a price column, and you have a quantity column in, let's say, your fact table. I hope you know what fact table is, but I'm not going to get into that. You have a unit price, you have a quantity. Okay. Now, it's a lot of people will look at that data and say, okay, we need another column for what? Let's say total amount or revenue, whatever you want to name it, revenue, total amount or gross amount, whatever, which is to multiply the unit price times the quantity. So you are creating an extra column in your data model or in your table. Okay. That extra column is what you call a calculated column. Okay. Now, what is a measure? In a measure, you are not adding an extra column per se in your model. You are creating a virtual, so to say, a virtual calculation whereby you are able to still do the product of, so again, I don't want to get too deep, like talking about iterator functions and the likes, but you are still able to do so the main goal of adding that calculated column I mentioned initially was to first get the total amount column, and at the end of the add up that total amount column. All right. Now, when you create a measure, you're going to skip that total amount column you created, and you're able to still do your quantities times price, okay? And you obtain this virtually, and then you do like a total of all of that. Now, what is the difference between creating this measure and creating a calculated column? A calculated column takes space in your data model and increases the size of your table. Okay. Let me take that again. If you create a calculated column, so let's say you have 100 million rows in your data, and your data is currently, let's say, 1 GB, for example. If you add one calculated column, there is the size of that extra column is going to be added to your data model. So maybe your model is now going to be 1.1 or 1.2 gig, right? Whereas a measure is not stored in the data model. A measure is calculated and stored in memory. Oh, sorry, a measure is calculated at runtime, which means that when you call that measure, it calculates or it does that calculation at runtime. It is not stored in the memory, so it doesn't increase the size of your model. All right. So those are the major differences. Now, which one would you use? I would like to say very big, it depends. All right. However, measures are lightweight. All right. They are very effective for a lot of scenarios. And you should, if you have an option of creating a measure and creating a calculated column, and creating a measure would be best to do. All right. Now, there are certain situations whereby you absolutely cannot create a measure for that. You need to create a calculated column. Then you should go for calculated column. But if you are able to do the two, all right, creating a measure is the best way to go. Another thing to note is that as much as possible, reduce calculated columns in your fact tables. If you have calculated columns in your dimension table, to a large extent, this may be fine because dimension tables are not essentially as big as fact tables, all right? Because when you have calculated columns in fact table, like I mentioned, you're adding to your to the size of your data model. It may not be a big problem for you if you're dealing with very small data, 1,000 rows, 2,000, 10,000, 20,000 rows. By the time you start dealing with data in millions and hundreds of millions of rows, every extra column you add is going to ultimately impact the size of your data model. Okay, so to summarize, measures would be the way to go if you can. However, if you can't, then calculated column is fine. So let me give you an example of situations where you need calculated columns. So you create a calendar table, for example. You have a date, a calendar table that lists the number of days in a year. So from the 1st of January 2025 to the 31st of December 2025, that's a single column. Now you need to extract the week number or the day. You need to extract the month name. You need to extract the year. So each of these are going to be extra columns that you're adding to your calendar table. You can not necessarily create those ones as measures, okay? Because you actually need them in the dimension table. All right. So in that situation, calculated columns are fine. All right. And you can also use them to slice and dice your data. Okay. However, in a fact table, when you need to create calculation in fact tables, if you can, you should absolutely go with a measure. However, if you know you can't, maybe because of skill, or maybe because of ease or whatever, then you can then go for calculated column. There's so many other differences, but again, because of time, I'm just limiting and trying to keep the answer short. To read more about this, you can just Google measures calculated column. There's something that's called Vertipack Analyzer. How does Power BI compress data? Okay. The Vertipack engine, how does Power BI in itself compress data, and how much margin would this be if I have a calculated column, especially if I have millions and millions of rows. Also, a calculated column, you also need to consider things about how much Power BI can compress that data, how many unique value, how many distinct value, for example, are in that column. Those are things that impact how much compression it can get, but ultimately a measure would be the way to go if you can. I hope that answers.
Thank you so much, sir. So the key difference, calculated columns increases the size of your model while measures do not. Thank you. So David Sunday says or asks, is there any free certification platform with certificates apart from Microsoft?
Okay, thank you for this question. To answer, I'm going to first tell you what is the difference between a certificate and a certification. Okay, a certificate, aka certificate of completion, is something you collect, or it's a proof that you passed through a program or you completed a program. It's not a test of skill that you can actually, or and you can actually deliver that skill that is on that certificate. I'll give you a very big example. If you go through this mentorship program, for example, again, I'm not so sure, so please, if I'm wrong, just forgive me. Maybe you get a certificate at the end of this program to say David Sunday completed this mentorship program, blah 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 blah. That is a certificate, or that is a certificate of completion. It doesn't mean that you grab the entire concept of what you learned in this program, and it doesn't mean you can deliver that. So anybody can give certificates. If you go on YouTube, okay, no, maybe not YouTube. If you go on Udemy, you go on any of these platforms, you get a certificate after you've completed a program. However, a certification is different. A certification is something that is globally recognized, all right? And you have to, in most cases, pass a series of requirements or write an exam for you to get that certification. There is a body that is responsible for the requirement that you have to go through to earn that certification. And certifications are usually recognized industry-wide, all right? Or let's say global-wide. For example, ICANN. So again, if you go to, let's say you go do a 3-month course in accounting, what they give you after you completed that 3-month course is a certificate that you completed that program. It has less recognition than for you to sit for an ICANN and be ICANN certified. ICANN is a certification. That certificate you collected after passing a 3-month course is a certificate. The same thing, the data analytics certification from Microsoft is a certification because you need to write an exam and you need to pass that exam, score a minimum cutoff mark, I think 700, to get that certification. Are there other platforms that are offering certificates? Yes, but those are not certifications. I hope that answers.
Thank you so much, sir. David, I hope you got that. So we have another question. How can analysts ensure data accuracy when combining multiple data sources in Power BI?
How can analysts ensure that their data is accurate or data accuracy? This question is, I can answer it in different ways. I'm looking for the best way to answer. Okay, let's start from source. Okay, so when you're pulling data, all right, from maybe a database, or you're pulling data from any other source. Maybe this is a database, or this is an Excel file, or this is an ERP system, or this is a CRM system. The very first thing after, the next thing you do after your, let's say, ETL process, maybe you extract that data, you transform, you load it. There's something they call validation. Even if you're building a data pipeline, after that exercise, you need to validate that the data that you have at the end of that exercise, all right, is the same, right, from with the source. So you need to do a validation against the source, all right. At the same time, if you finish building your report, so at each level, there are validation that you do at each level. When you connect to an Excel file, you know that in this Excel file you had 1 million rows. When you pull this into Power BI, in your Power Query, the very first step, without any transformation, you must have 1 million rows, or maybe -1, maybe because you promoted the headers, all right? So you have one less column, but you need to validate at that level. Now, let's say you do transformation, you do cleaning, you remove some rows, you added some rows, or you added more columns and the likes. At the end of that ETL exercise, you need to do a small validation to confirm that all that you have done still tallies with your data source. If you have done a transformation that remove column or the likes, you can also do that manually in your Excel to validate that the source and your, I'm not calling it destination now, let me just say destination, they still check, all right? At the same time, when you finish building your report, even before you open it up for QA testing, you need to also validate at that point to be sure that your data, your final output in your Power BI dashboard, validates against the source, all right? Then if you're in a big organization, maybe you have, you just test this, you maybe have a business analyst or a project manager, then I'll do another round of validation to be sure that all the numbers check out. But validation is something that is really, really important, that you need to do at every level in your reporting, because reporting or data analytics is not just about building colorful dashboards. We are not UI UX designers, all right? The data, the integrity of the data is also very important. And as a data professional, you need to be aware of that at each step that you do, okay? So I hope that answers.
Yes, sir, it does. So in summary, data validation is very, very important. So David still asks, is there any certification platform apart from Microsoft?
Okay, I think that okay, now thank you, David. So yes, there are other, if you are talking about data certifications, right? If, let's assume, I want to assume that maybe that's what you're talking about. Of course, there are other certification apart from Microsoft. Databricks have their own certification. Google, I know, also have a certification program. I also know that I know Databricks has, this is AWS, of course, has their certification. Google BigQuery or Google also have certification for data professionals. So it depends on each one or anyone you're going for, depending on the skill you're trying to acquire or that you're trying to master. Right now, maybe I should also put this out there. There is no certification that cuts across all the OEMs. When I say OEMs, I mean like the likes of Microsoft, Google, Databricks. There's no, will I say, collective data analyst certification that you say that this cuts across all of these platforms, because each of these platforms are different and they are unique. Or let me, if there are, maybe I'm not aware, right? Each of these platforms are different and they are unique. So if you get a, so for, let me give you a very big example. There used to be DA 100. DA 100 is the data analytics certification from Microsoft. But I think maybe after multiple backlash and the likes of Microsoft reassesses, that's why we now have PL 300, which was the I think Power BI data analyst certification, because you're only getting certified on the Microsoft ecosystem or the Power BI ecosystem, all right? So the same way AWS also have their own data certification, whether for data science or for data analysts or data engineers. Google also has theirs. DBT has theirs. Databricks also has theirs as well. So I hope that answers the question.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. So we have another question in the chat. Saidi says, what is a semantic model?
Semantic model is a fancy way to capture your data sets, your schema, and there's a third one, the data sets, the tables, and the schema. I think that it's three. So it's a word that was coined by is it Microsoft? Yeah, I think it's Microsoft. We used to call it data sets before. So you know when you publish a, so let me give you a very interesting example. So if you publish a Power BI report, you build a Power BI report in desktop, and you publish it to the Power BI service. All right. So you have the report itself, and you have the data set. All right. So that data, it used to be data set before, but data set does not capture. Yeah, okay. Measure was the third thing I was looking for. In that data set, Microsoft renamed it to semantic model. So that semantic model captures the data set in itself. It captures the measures that you have written in that data set. And I think the third one is the schema. All right. So those three concepts are what is captured and named your semantic model. So this comprises of the data set, the measures, and the schema of that table, or the number of tables that you have in your Power BI reports. I hope that clarifies.
Thank you, sir. Saidi, I hope you got that. So Gold says, please, sir, can statistical analysis be done using Power BI?
Power BI can perform some Power BI can perform some statistical analysis, but it is not built for your complex or complicated statistical analysis. All right. So, for example, some very basic mean, median, mode, average, count, right? All of these at the base level. I think if you also write some measures, you can also get some more things out of it. Maybe you're trying to get standard deviation, you're trying to get variance and the likes. But can you use Power BI, or should you use Power BI for your core statistical analysis? I don't think is the best tool for that. You may have to default back to your SPSS or your other tools that you have. But yeah, to a very large extent, can you do some statistical or analysis in Power BI? I would say yes. This depends on the level of statistical analysis you want to do. I hope that clarifies.
Thank you so much, sir. Gold, I hope you got that. So Soye, sorry if I didn't pronounce this well, says, what is the purpose of time intelligence functions in Power BI?
Yeah, I think it's obvious. It's for you to be able to measure your. Let me find a better way to put it. It's for you to be able to measure certain KPIs against time as it moves with time. Okay. So from the word time intelligence, you're building calculations that allow you to compare certain KPIs across different time series. Okay. So your revenue this year is 1 billion. You want to write a formula for revenue same period last year. All right. So you write your measure, you're able to get what is the measure, what is the revenue for last year. All right. So when you present this to stakeholder, you're able to not just present data in isolation, you're able to compare to a previous time period to say our revenue is 1 billion this year, but last year we did 1.5 billion. All right. Or we want to do a run rate, a year to date, for example. It's one thing to say, oh, last year we did 1.5 billion for January to December, but we're still in November now. We're still in November 16th. All right. So you want to compare year to date for this year to date to last year. All of these are time intelligence for you to be able to understand KPIs across different time dimensions so that you don't report data in isolation. Data makes more sense when you're able to benchmark and compare against different variables. All right. So your time intelligence functions could be your total year to date, could be month to date, week to date, quarter to date, year to date, last year, last month, last period, last quarter, and so on and so forth. Okay. So being able to compare across multiple time periods, one particular or multiple KPIs, that is what your time intelligence functions in Power BI are about. I hope that helps.
Thank you so much, sir, for that. I hope you got that. So Oluwafemi's hand is raised. I'll just enable
Okay.
his or her mic. Sorry, so that's can I ask the question. So Oluwafemi, your mic has been enabled. You can go ahead.
I don't really have a question. If there are other questions, I would like to go last because it's just a suggestion for the organizers. Because uh, all of us here at different levels of expertise and level of skills, and sometimes what the facilitators are saying or what our guest speaker is saying is like Greek. So that's why I said I wanted to go last.
Can you just give me one example, Oluwafemi, on one of the concepts that I mentioned that you don't understand?
My skills level is beginner.
Okay.
So so what you're saying, I've watched the videos assignment for this week, but I've not been able to start my assignment because I'm still having challenges getting my appropriate data set. So I'm going along, but I'm dragging along. So what I wanted to say is that I know Mr. Adewale is on this platform, maybe trying to evaluate the skill level and group us into beginner, intermediate, or experts level so that so you don't get disenfranchised and drop out.
Okay, that's verified. I'm sure the moderators will take the feedback. So I'm also trying. So you remember when I started, I don't know what skill level each and everyone on the call are. So, but yeah, that's a very nice feedback. I'll try to break concept down more. At the same time, I'm also watchful of time. So if I say semantic model, for example, I think there was a question that asked about semantic model. I'll need to use references within Power BI itself to explain what a semantic model is. And I mean, of course, if that's not something that you're currently familiar with, it may throw you off, which I pretty much understand. But yeah, thank you for the feedback. I would put that at the back of our mind when answering other questions. And I'm sure the facilitators will also do the same for subsequent speakers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Olufemi, for that feedback. So Gold still says, please, sir, I learned that PL 300 certification is for 1 year. If one has written an exam before, does it require taking another exam to renew it?
No. When you write a certification exam, the period is for 1 year. At the end of that 1 year, you are not going to retake that exam, or sorry, before the expiration of that 1 year, you are not going to rewrite that exam. You are just going to take a short test. I think roughly about 15 to 20 questions. It is not the same thing as writing a proctored exam where you have invigilators and the like. This is just think of it as an online assessment that you just complete at your own pace, just to certify that you still know the concepts in that certification, and then your certification will be renewed automatically. That one, you can rewrite that as many times as possible. If you fail it, just make sure that you renew before the expiration of that 1 year. You start getting notifications from 6 months to the expiry of the certification. So for you to take that online assessment, so you just take it, I think it's about 15, 20, 25 questions. If you fail it, you get to rewrite it again, you write it till you pass and your certification is renewed. What you should be careful of is to make sure that you don't allow the certificate to expire. If you wait for it to expire, then you need to rewrite a fresh exam for you to be recertified, all right? But as long as you are renewing your certification within the renewal window, you're just taking a short assessment. I hope that answers.
Thank you, sir. That makes so much sense. So Oluwatayo David says, please, could you explain the importance and when to use heat map visual?
Sorry, give me 1 moment, please. I'm trying to switch my... Can you all still hear me?
Yes, sir, we can.
Okay, sorry, I needed to switch my device there. Yeah, can you take the question again, please?
All right, so Durosimi rather says, okay, not this. Oluwatayo says, please, could you explain the importance and when to use the heat map visual?
So the heat map visual is Olufemi, can you mute? I think you're still muted. You're still unmuted. So when to use the heat map visual, so you use it, of course, in a map, and you use this when you're trying to see how much data is, let's say, clustered around a particular point on your map. All right, and you use this to visually represent that. Okay, so let me give you a typical example. Let's say you're building an healthcare dashboard, for example, and you want to capture the spread of a particular disease or the spread of a particular virus. And so you capture the location of every reported case of that virus on the map, for example. Now, if you report this as, if you represent it as a heat map, you're able to show, I think, from deep red or dark red to light red to amber to all the way to green or something. You are now able to show the areas where this is highly concentrated or where you have more reported cases. And this can offer like a more visual storytelling way to your stakeholders or to your report recipients on where this is more prevalent. Okay, so that's one use that I know for for a heat map. I hope that answers that question.
Thank you so much, sir. So David says, I registered for cyber security Microsoft exam 3 months ago because of the distance for online, but people advise not to go for online. Now, if I'm interested in Microsoft certification exam, which mode is the best and why?
I registered for cybersecurity Microsoft exam 3 months ago because of the distance for online. This question is not clear. Because of the distance, let me answer how I understand it, and maybe if you can, you can maybe retype the question. When you register to take a Microsoft certification exam, you have two ways to take it. Either you take it online proctored, or you take it at a test center. All right. And so I don't understand this part where you say you were advised not to go because of distance. So if you take it at a test center, it's nice, especially if you don't have very good internet, or you cannot get like a quiet space to write your exam. But if you take the exam, if you have good internet and you're confident that, or you stay in a remote location where it's not easy for you to travel all the way to a test center, you can take it at the comfort of your home or office. You just need to make sure you have strong internet and there's privacy in your will I say workstation, or anywhere you want to take the exam. Basically, make sure that there are no intruders or intrusion in your workspace, because that may cause you to for your exam to be ended. So when you're taking the exam from the comfort of your home, you're made to scan your workspace and the environment around you. Your camera will be monitored, your microphone from your laptop will be monitored, and you're basically going to have a proctor, an online proctor that is going to note that you are not cheating. Now, the second part, if I'm interested in Microsoft certification exam, which mode is the best and why? I think I've answered this already, all right? It depends. I take all my exams at home, right? Because I'm more relaxed when I'm at home. But some people, they prefer to take it at a test center. The rule of thumb is, if you know that you don't have strong internet, or you don't have strong power, because that's another thing. You can't be writing an exam and and NEPA will take lights. For example, how will invigilators see you? Okay, so you need to make sure that there is power supply is guaranteed, internet is guaranteed, and your don't let me say workspace, your test area is secured. If you're going to use a room in your house, make sure you enter a room and you lock the door. You cannot take the exam where you have people running around, or people talking in loud voices, or people walking around. You're going to get into problem with the invigilators like that. So make sure you have a quiet space, you have good internet, and you have electricity, and you have a good laptop that is not going to fail on you midway. If all of these things are a check, or they are checked for you, then you can write the exam in your home. If you cannot guarantee all of this, just go to a test center. You can choose anyone that is closest to you. I hope that helps.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. So we have this question: how can analysts effectively communicate their findings to non-technical stakeholders?
Thank you very much for the question. How can analysts communicate their findings to stakeholders without what? Can you repeat it again,
Okay,
please?
he said, how can analysts effectively communicate their findings to non-technical stakeholders?
Oh, to non-technical stakeholders. Okay, thank you. So remember the first question I started with, okay? If you've done all the things I mentioned in that space, you understand first, you have a little bit of domain knowledge of the industry you are trying to build for. You understand the KPIs that you're trying to represent. You've understand the business question that you're trying to answer, okay? And you've represented your dashboard in the way your stakeholders or your your end users, the way they've been asked or you've asked to represent it. One key thing to note here, if you're building, again, I'm going to be as broad as possible. There are two types of analysts, all right? You're either working solo or you're working in a team, all right? If you're working solo and you have access to stakeholders, make sure you carry them along in the course of your project. Don't build in isolation. So you finish building and you just think there's one big review. It's not a Tara moment that you just throw it on them. Carry them along. Understand the stakeholder engagement in any project that you're trying to build. Okay, you're carrying them along. So you get to understand if you can build mock-ups. For example, that's something, for example, in consulting, we do a lot. Okay, before you build a dashboard, we build a wireframe. It's not necessarily going to have all the colors and light. You can build a wireframe, or if you want to do a little bit extra, or you have a data professional on your team, you do like maybe one small Figma design. It's I'm taking it overboard now, right? But at the whole essence of this is to get the buy-in of your stakeholders before you start. Okay. Now, once you've so all the feedback, all right, you already noted it, and you are incorporating it in your report or your dashboard. So you know that, for example, let me give you a very typical example. Knowing your audience is very important, all right? So you're presenting in a particular industry, for example, where everybody use acronyms and everybody understand the acronyms, okay? Maybe it's fine to put the acronyms, but you can't be building a dashboard and be using acronyms where you know that your non-technical stakeholders will not understand these acronyms. So you're building something in the, let's say for e-commerce, and your dashboards, you're putting CTA, you're putting QOD, QED, and all of those things, right? Those may be industry acronyms, or if they are not industry-wide acronyms, then maybe it's best to avoid it. But if you know that this is something that is an industry-wide acronym and it's okay to use it, then maybe use it. Now, the second thing is, so communicating to stakeholder, it is not when you finish the dashboard that you now start thinking, how do I communicate to stakeholder? That's something that you need to plan across the way, okay? Some of the key things you can also do in your dashboard is don't just put values in isolation. So you just put cards, for example, and you say FSI, 1,500, for example. Anybody that is looking at that, maybe if they're in the industry and they understand the acronym, they may get it, all right? But what are the things I can do better? By just saying maybe CTA, for example, or I'm trying to say, I'm looking for a very wide acronym that you can use. Or so instead of just saying that acronym, you can write the thing in full. Call to action, for example, maybe you say it's 1,500. Now, what are some of the other things you can put on that card that gives it a little more, that explain the context of that figure? Are you trying to compare this value? You want to compare it versus target or something, or versus budget, for example. You want to compare it versus the previous period. Okay, these are very simple things that when you write, so you write it in full, you have the card, you compare it to a previous period so that they know that this is what you're comparing these values to. They are not in isolation. If you can, again, it's advisable, if you know, you can put it text, all right, to show, just something to say, this KPI increased 10% versus last year, for example. So the summary of all of this is include all your stakeholders at the point in the journey of building your dashboard. Get what they like, understand what they want, avoid technical jargons and acronyms, avoid just slapping things in there that sound good or that looks interesting to you. but are not what the stakeholders want, all right? And add context to any data that you are reporting. These are slight steps to present to non-technical stakeholders. And again, you also need to know, if you involve your stakeholders, the way you present data to an operations team, all right, is different from the way you present that to a C-level executives. At C-level executives, they just need the most important information. They don't need the granular details, drill down, and all of those big tables that you're going to represent. They need the most important information, they need concept, the context, and they need the insights. If you can capture all of this, it doesn't necessarily have to be a big note. You've captured the value, you've compared it to a previous period, a target or budget, you've added a context, or and maybe like an insight. What exactly is someone supposed to do with this information? All right, it's not just about saying sales 10 million. Is 10 million, is it good, is it bad, is it ugly? But when you compare it to budget or target, or you compare it to a certain period, and you say, oh, this declined by 15% versus, I think these are some critical concepts that you can use when presenting to non-technical stakeholders. I hope that helps.
Yes, sir, it does. Thank you so much. So, Durosimi, you asked a question, but that question is not really clear. You might want to raise your hand so I can enable your mic so you explain further. Then, Ismaila, I think this will be the last question because we are at time. So, Ismaila says, how many people can sign into Power BI using a single person work mail? And why is one required to use, and is one required to use work or school mail?
Okay, that's a very interesting question. First off, if you are using Power BI desktop, you don't compulsorily have to sign in. So if you don't have a work or a school account, you can work maybe from Power BI desktop. Why does Power BI require you to sign in from a school or from a work email? That's because it's from the name Power Business Intelligence. It's for corporate usage. I know that as individuals, we also want to learn, and we don't have any corporate email. So the way it's designed is you can't use Gmail, for example, to sign into Power BI because they expect you to be part of an organization because it's a tool for organization. You cannot, as a single person, just say you want to be tracking things. I mean, for learning purposes, fine. So you can use the Power BI desktop to learn and for your own personal learning. So you need a work or a school account. Now, do you necessarily need to sign in when you're working in desktop? Like I just answered, the answer is no. When you're using a Power BI desktop, you don't necessarily have to sign in. Now, and it's also free, you're not buying any license. Now, when you publish that report to a workspace in the Power BI service, you also don't need a license to consume that report personally, right? Where licensing comes is where you need to share that report with multiple team members in the Power BI service. That's when the issue of licensing and the likes come about. Now, to your final question, to how many people can share a password or can use a single account? Okay, this is not, I'm not sure this is something ethical to answer, but I'll answer nonetheless. And that's to say, I don't think there's a limit. So if you have a group email in your company, so let's say, for example, you build a report for sales team, and there's a group sales email. So let's say it's sales@xyz.com. Okay, so you can share that report with sales@xyz.com, and anybody that's signing with that sales@xyz.com, I don't think there's a limit to it. They can all see that report and consume it. But there are downside. The downside is you cannot manage information where you are sharing passwords with everybody. You cannot manage the data in terms of security, in terms of privacy, in terms of organizational security as well. When everybody and anybody can access something and there's no owner, you cannot put controls. There are also some advanced concepts that when you try to implement, again, Olufemi, apologies, this is just something I would mention. It's an advanced concept which you learn or you may come to learn in the course of this journey. You want to do things like row level security, or you want to do things like column level security. These are specific security that you apply to each team member depending on their role. So you want the sales manager to see the same report, but you want the sales manager to see the report for the entire subordinate, but you want each subordinate to only be able to see their own reports. You manage this using something called row level security in Power BI. When everybody is sharing the same password, you can't really do that because it's just one account that everybody is looking at. All right. So these are concepts that you need to be, and it's not even something that is advised. All right. Password sharing. It's like saying how many people can have access or password to one email account. Right. So you can tell that there will be no control. There will be no you don't know who deletes what and who sends what. So 5 of us are using the same email, and we're using that same email to send out and receive emails. When somebody sends something that violates company policy, how do we know who sent it? When me, Femi, Durosimi, and maybe Tolulope are sharing the same password, you can't put in controls and you can't put in checks and security measures against that. But is there a limit to the number of people that can check password out? I don't think there is one. I hope that helps.
Yes, it does. Thank you so much, sir. I hope the person that asked that got it. So I know I said that that was supposed to be the last question, but I see a very important question that I think everybody on this call needs to get an answer to. So this person says, how can analysts, data analysts in this case, stay up to date with the rapidly evolving data landscape?
This is a very, very interesting question. And I'm happy that you asked that question, to be honest. The data landscape, and I think is a very important note to end the session on. The data space is changing very rapidly, right? And it is very important that we also learn, and we also evolve. And this is not just data, this is something that cuts across tech, the tech industry at wide. When I was starting data, like in 2014, yeah, I started data role around 2014, my first role. At this time, I only knew Excel, right? And I called myself a data. There was even no, I think Power BI launched in 2014, 2015, but I mean, I don't know anything in Power BI then. I only knew Excel and maybe a very tiny bit of SQL, which we don't even use in our company because our company was very big on spreadsheets and Google Sheets. And I only knew Excel. And that was all I needed to hold down the job for 3 good years while I was building different dashboard and automation systems. I think at that time, you also learn to build, some selling automation in Excel and the likes, right? So at that time, all you knew was Excel. Now, compare that to now, the data landscape has evolved very much. All right. There are a lot of tools, a lot of technologies, and even emerging technologies that we need to keep abreast of. Okay. And again, this is not to make it sound overwhelming. I'm just going to break it down. I would like to spend maybe 2-3 minutes to really flesh out this question. I hope you don't mind, moderator, because it's a very important question and we need to trash. I know that we're out of time, but if you can indulge me, I would just like to break it down as much as I can. I hope that's fine.
Yes, sir, that's fine. You can go ahead.
Okay. So like I started, compare that time to this period. So as at that time, right, data was stored a lot of company data was stored in flat file, Excel files and the likes, and some data were in databases that were sitting in on-premise data centers. Okay, so what was happening at that time? If you are I'm talking of small to medium organizations. If you're, so we used to have people called DBA, database administrators. All right, they are the ones. Maybe some of those roles have evolved to data engineers now. So if I'm building a dashboard mostly in Excel, I'll go meet a DBA, all right, or an IT. I mean, all of this. It may not necessarily be a core DBA. It may just be someone in IT that understands the database. This person is going to write some SQL queries, all right, and export. Let's say I get a business question from my boss, and my boss asks me that, Fatai, I need the sales in Abuja from January till date. All right. So I'll go meet the IT person or the DBA. This person is going to write a SQL query to query sales in Abuja to 2025. Okay. It's going to export that to Excel, send it to me. And I, in turn, I'll do VLOOKUP, do dashboard, and I'm fine. Everybody is happy. Okay. Now, business questions started evolving. So the same way my boss asked me for a year, he meant, okay, how about Port Harcourt? Did we sell more in Port Harcourt than in Abuja? And which product is fast moving? Now, compare this question. It started with just one question. It evolved into three. Imagine me going back to the DBA again to say, okay, now I need Port Harcourt data. Then it gives it to me. Then I need comparison of products that are selling and the like. So you can see that I will need to be, there's heavy dependency on going back to the database administrator and the like, which was why data professionals also started learning SQL, all right? Because you are constantly getting business questions, and you also need to be able to query the database yourself so that you can start answering some of these complex questions. It's not everything you'll be going back to the IT person or to the DBA for you to get answers. So guess what? SQL came in. So you need to learn SQL as well for you to be able to answer all of these questions. All right. Now, Power BI came and we needed to business intelligence. We needed to, instead of sending, so you build this dashboard in Excel and you send it to your boss. So today is Monday. You send it to your boss on Monday, and your boss requires this report every day or every Monday. So you pick that same report, you do it today, and then next week Monday you do it, next upper Monday you do it, and you're sending the report to your boss every week. Okay. Now, sometimes your boss needs something on the go. All right. You also need to be the one to sit down. Oh, there's a business review meeting tomorrow and something. You need to sit down at every single point in time to build that report. What if we can build one report, publish it to a universally accessible space where your boss can go or all your stakeholders can go at every single time, click, and get the information they need. When I've just built the report once, and they don't need to come back to me every single time for me to build that report for them. So they already have it, it's published, it's live, and the data just needs to refresh every day. That's where the knowledge of learning Power BI came. So you needed to learn Power BI to be able to do that. Okay. And of course, you need to understand gateways. If I'm connecting to data that is sitting in a server and the likes. And so you needed to learn Power BI to that extent. So you can see as the market or as the world was, or the business case and the world was evolving, the role and the understanding of that data professional, I'm using myself as a case study because that was how I evolved, all right? My role was also evolving. And I can't just say, because it was only Excel I knew, it's only Excel you employed me for, then I'm just going to sit. Imagine that was all I was doing. I will be stagnant, I will be stuck, and I will not grow and I will not improve. All right. But I was moving with the trend and as that was going. Okay. Now comes the era of big data. Before, you had just one server in your company that could maybe handle 10 million or 20 million or 5 gigabytes or 10 gigabytes or 100 gigabytes of data. Now, data exploded, all right? Everywhere now, companies want to track everything. They want to track how many, let me use a bank. Banks track everything. Financial institutions track everything. How many people are walking into the bank? How many people are using the ATMs? How many people are using the banking app? How often do they use the banking app? What time do they use the banking app? How many people are using our ATMs? How many people are performing transactions? What kind of transaction are they performing? All of these. What is the who should we give loan to? Who should we not give loan to? What is credit worthiness? Big data. Banks are collecting millions and millions and millions of data. This data cannot sit in a database in the bank server downstairs, all right? Because you keep buying server till the room is filled. Then comes cloud computing. You need to put data in the cloud, all right? Because you need to understand that at the cloud, you can scale without necessarily filling your own room with data, all right? Now, as data professional, we are not the ones setting up this data in the cloud, but now we need to understand very basic concept. That's where you need to understand the concept of Azure, AWS, all right? Because you need to start connecting to data sources that are not traditional or primary data sources. All right. Now, data is now just not structured data. They are now semi-structured data. People are collecting data from documents and files. All right. People are using music, audio data, video data. They are collecting terabytes and terabytes of data. As data professionals, we need to understand that as well. That's where the era of cloud computing comes in, and that is where people started learning. So they will ask you, do you understand AWS? Do you understand Azure? Do you understand this and the likes? And you can see that evolution, okay? And all that. I've not even talked about data science. Your company already know, okay, what has happened in the past, what has happened last year, 10 years ago, up till today. The next question they're going to ask is, what is going to happen tomorrow? How can we predict? So you see our sales is declining year on year. We're losing 5% revenue year on year. I want to know as a business owner, is this trend going to continue in the next 1 month, in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years? Is there seasonality in my data? We make more sales during rainy season and less sales during dry season. Is this trend going to continue? Can you predict? Here comes the whole concept of data science. All right. And this is where, I mean, this is not a data analyst role. This is a data science, but that's how data is evolving. Now we needed people that understand scripting, that understand Python or that understand R for you to be able to script out and build out data science models to predict the future. I'm not saying you have to do all of that. Okay. Now, let me bring it all home. The data ecosystem and the world is evolving. Now we have AI. All right. You cannot imagine the scale at which AI is going to grow. Okay. Now, and AI has really democratized a lot of technical knowledge that with a few prompts, you can get answers to what you want. Okay. Now, as business questions keep evolving, data professionals also need to keep evolving because you need to learn what is going on. And you need to be able to grow and adapt with time. It doesn't mean, I'm not saying that you should go learn everything at once. Baby steps, all right? You start with what you have, where you are right now, whether it's Excel you're starting with, whether it's Power BI you're starting with, you learn a little bit about how all of this come together. There's a T way to learning, okay? There's a T way. You have the broad understanding across the industry. So you understand where the role of a data engineer cross sections, a data analyst across sections, a data engineer. Okay, you have a broad understanding of the data ecosystem. Then you now learn, you become very adept at a very particular skill. Whether you're a data analyst, you grow in depth. So you grow in width in the general knowledge, and then you grow in depth at one particular skill. There are some people that are very good with SQL and database, all right? They grow in depth. Whether yours is going to be Power BI, grow in depth, all right? Know everything that they need to know about that. At the same time, keep a broad view about what is happening in the ecosystem, because you can't just say your goals go learning Power BI, but when Power BI started, there were only about a few 50, 60 connectors. Right now, if you go on Power BI, there are over 150 or 200 connectors of things you can connect to. People are connecting to Spotify data. They are connecting to open source data. They're connecting to data, I mean, different kinds of data. Imagine if all you know is Power BI, ETL, and then somebody comes and say, I had a client the other day and said they want to connect data to Sage and pull data from all the accounting solution into Power BI. If you don't have the concept or know anything about APIs or API calls and the likes, you're not going to be able to deliver on that project. You're going to need someone, maybe a data engineer, to first call the API or to help you build or collect all the data from the accounting system, put it in a database, and you connect to the database. Maybe fine. But if you also want to grow and you want to grow in depth and also in width, you need to have a base understanding of everything that is going on in the ecosystem. So how do I advise you to approach this? Keep an open mind. Don't say all of these things are too overwhelming. Everything, I never even finished learning Excel. You people carry Power BI come, you're stacking SQL onto it, you're stacking Python, R. This, I mean, you're going to make me run away. But that is not the approach I'd like us to look at this, all right? The facilitator of this program have done an excellent job of putting this mentorship program together. If you want to be a data analyst or a core data analyst, that is absolutely fine. Know your Power BI very well, know a little bit of SQL, all right. I mean, of course, Excel is non-negotiable. Okay. Be very grounded at that. Does that mean that you should now lock your mind to every other thing that is going? No. Know a little bit of everything. It always helps. And keep abreast. Read blogs, data blogs, technical blogs, what is happening around here. There's one thing I love to do every month. Power BI since 2014 has been releasing new features every single month. And they post it. There's a fabric, I mean, Power BI evolved to, I didn't even talk about fabric at all right? Which I'm not going to talk about because we're totally out of time, all right? Power BI now evolved to fabric, release monthly updates. Keep abreast with things like that. Follow industry experts, learn about what they're posting, what are people talking about, and grow and evolve. There are some people that have made us say, it's fabric, I've not finished learning. You people are, sorry, it's Power BI I'm learning. I've not even finished learning this Power BI. You people are bringing fabric. Nobody's going to say if you stay in your Power BI, you will not see job. But what happens when everybody has evolved to fabric and you're still locked into Power BI? Okay, so I've said a lot of things, and I want to believe that I've been able to really dissect this topic, keep an open mind, continue to learn. This industry, you can't say, I went to a course or I went to a school, I did a 3-month program, and you stop. No, you're going to be rooted out of the industry. I've been in this game like since 2014. I'm still constantly learning. There's some concepts, basic concept I Google. If you see my Google or my ChatGPT, you're not even going to call me a senior. You're just going to be like, why is this guy Googling this simple stuff? And that's because you keep learning, all right? So you're never going to stop learning. Keep an open mind, keep learning. As you're learning, try to apply, try to build projects. Don't learn things in abstract. There's some people that fall into what we call the tutorial hell. You keep watching videos and reading blogs and reading technical. Watch me build this Power BI something. You watch all that 2-hour video. You don't build anything. All right. You get the false illusion that you know something. But when it comes to applying, that's where you get stuck. So continue learning, continue building, keep an open mind, be inquisitive, be curious. If you see stuff online, try it on yourself. If you see something, somebody applied a concept, ask them, reach out to them. How did you do this? Can you teach me how to do it? Or just Google it yourself. ChatGPT has made the world really easy nowadays. We don't have ChatGPT when we're learning. We come Stack Overflow for 5 hours looking for answer to one simple question. Now it's just one prompt away on your ChatGPT. I know I've said a lot. I'm going to keep talking right now. This is something I'm very passionate about. So forgive me for going on and on about it. But I hope this absolutely helped. Thank you very much. And back to you, moderator.
Yes, sir, it does. Thank you so much. I think this particular question is, I don't even know what to say. But I think my key takeaway is the 2 ways to learning. grow in width to general knowledge, and go in depth to a particular skill. So thank you so much, sir. Everyone on the call, please give our moderator, give our speaker a round of applause. He has done justice to all our questions. Please, if you have more questions, just drop your questions in the group chat, the WhatsApp group, and we would be answering them. Thank you so much, Mr. Fatai Sani, for doing this with us. We are grateful. Mr. Adewale, do you have anything to say before we end the call? Okay, so
Can you
Juan,
hear me?
please just drop your question in the group. Thank you.
Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, sir, we
Esther,
can.
thank you so much, Fatai. Thank you for doing this with us. I know it's not easy to get your time and to get you on the call for over an hour, and then it's so much privilege for us to be on the call with you. Thank you so much for
Thank
giving
you.
us back to back. Like, you really actually answer a lot of questions well, and then you actually pour a lot of your wealth of knowledge onto everyone. So thank you so much. I really enjoyed the session myself. I was on the call from the beginning to the end. And then the
Thank you.
advice you gave at the end too, it really make a lot of sense because so many people just be like, I'm tired. I don't want to do this anymore. And that's why I think this year we don't take too much of participants like last year. Last year we took over 1,000 people. But at the end of the day, like almost 600 or 700 fall off. And this is because students or people that are learning, and this relates to questions that Johan asked, which I don't want to answer, which I don't know if you want to answer,
Yeah,
Fatai.
I was just typing. I'm just typing the answer in the chat because I know we are out of time.
Yeah, so which is related to question that she asked, that I have a 9 to 5 job, a professional job, which is different from data role. I have family, maybe you have kids, maybe you have husband, maybe you have wife, maybe you have other responsibilities, and I still want to learn. Well, my answer is actually no excuse, because if you really want to do something you want to do, even if it's 1 hour of your time in the entire 24 hours you have, you should be able to actually devote 1 hour of your time to it, and then try to grow yourself. And then for Oluwafemi, the question you asked about being a beginner, please, I want to beg everyone. We understand that you guys are beginner, intermediate, and advanced people, and then we don't want to limit the learning to basically maybe beginner alone or maybe intermediate alone. And that is why we allow you to learn at your own pace, so that you can come into the session and ask any questions you have at all, whether it's beginner question, whether it's intermediate question, whether it's advanced question. You know that our speaker is capable of answering all of those questions. So don't be shy to ask any questions or anything you don't understand, or maybe there's something they ask in the class you don't understand. It's an avenue for you to also learn. So please come out and ask your questions, and don't be shy. And at the end of the day, I'm sure we are going to get results. In fact, we are getting results, because last year, Fatai, over 40 of our students actually got job, big job, not even small
Wow.
job. So which is a good result. So if we can get at least those kind of results, it means that we are helping people, and then we are giving back
Yeah.
to the community. So thank you so much for joining us. You've been my OG since way back, and my Oga too. So
No.
thank you so much. Really appreciate for you to be here. So, and to Esther herself, our moderator, thank you so much. Your energy is on fire. And thank you
Thank
everyone for
you.
joining as well.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, everyone. Please let's not forget to start working on our projects. Very soon we'll be doing a presentation. So if you've not started, please get your group together and start. Do have a beautiful evening. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank
Bye.